Hello, everybody. So here I am again. First of all, I'm going to continue talking. This is going to be an extension about the new Pope. I'm not going to go on in other videos to talk about it, okay? But I wanted to complete what I started with my first reaction, okay? You remember that in the previous video, my reaction was simply at what I saw when he came out of the balcony. And also, since I was watching it, I was on the bus and I was strolling to see the coverage of what was happening, that most of the places I was unfortunate to listen to were very, in some cases, vulgar, in other cases, banal, as to how they were covering it. So I left it there. I hadn't actually, before I uploaded that video, which I will put at the end of this one for those who didn't watch it. I hadn't checked at that time with anybody else. I just wanted to give you my first impression. And my first impression, as you remember, was one of relief, because imagine how we traditionalists were viewing the whole thing. We were actually, on tenterhooks. And to see him with the papal regalia and not being afraid of Latin and so on, at least, oh my goodness, a sigh of relief. But I'm going to continue and I'm going to cover several points, actually, and I'm going to show you a picture. I will come to that. I will also end with that discussion or difference of opinion between J.D. Vance and this present Pope. Apparently, they disagreed. You remember it was about the immigration issue, and I will deal with that. First of all, Pope Francis didn't agree with J.D. Vance, and we are told that the present Pope didn't agree with him either. And I'm going to try to sort out a little bit about that disagreement. If you can, that will be at the end. Okay, so first of all, very quickly again, the vestments. You remember that Francis was only wearing a cassock. All right, so it means, to me, it meant that he saw himself, or rather, let me put it in the present. Pope Leo wore the whole papal regalia. It means that he sees himself being Pope not as something personal and his own thing, but as something that comes from tradition and therefore has continuity in the life of the Church. As I explained somewhere else too, if I can repeat it, please bear with me. If you cut yourself away from tradition, you are like a branch floating in the air, not attached to the roots. You need to be tied to the roots for continuity. For the continual life, you have to be attached to those roots. Remember the example that I gave in another video where Francis was thinking and talking about the traditionalists, actually in a quite disparaging way, saying that they're all concerned about the roots. Their head is, under the soil, just looking at the roots. No, he said, you have to look at the flower. Okay. Yes, but if you cut the flower from the roots, it dies. You can keep it alive for about another week in water, which is life, but it dies eventually. One more thing. We are told apparently he's going to live in the apostolic quarters, as all the popes before him. Some, of course, are saying, "Oh, but Francis, he was so humble. He, lived in Casa Santa Marta and all that." Okay. You may not, those people who say that may not be aware that living in Santa Marta is extremely expensive. Not only is extremely expensive, but it is a source of anxiety and disorder because the staff there have to deal with everybody who comes. In the apostolic quarters is much easier. The same with the doctor business. No, he didn't want his doctor in the, for himself. No, he would go to a hospital like all other human beings. Yes, obviously, if you're very ill, you have to go to the hospital. But before he got very ill, before a doctor could deal with, the difference is that when you go to the hospital about something that could have been dealt by the doctor, what happens is that you occupied perhaps many rooms and perhaps even a floor, and it is also extremely expensive. The same with the ring. Oh, no, not this ring. Well, no, just a silver ring. Well, a silver ring was made by one of these very expensive companies in Barcelona, and it cost thousands and thousands of pounds. And anyway, so I am a little bit, distrustful of displaying humility. The display of humility is not something that I like. Humility is quiet and takes a back road to everything. Okay, moving on. The words of the benediction. Before that, you remember that he had a piece of paper in his hand and he was reading from it. Okay, that to me says, yes, he wasn't speaking extemporaneously and so on, but that to me is a good thing in the sense that it was not for this first address, for this first impression, it was not improvised, but it was thought out and written and read. And that to me is prudent. I don't think it is a bad thing. And what did the Pope talk about? All right, peace, yeah? But not peace in the sense of let us have peace. Isn't peace a good thing and it's a wonderful thing? We all do that. No, he said explicitly the peace given to us by Christ resurrected, saying peace is the first greeting of the resurrected Christ. That is how his first words were, peace be to you. The words of the resurrected Christ. A peace unarmed, a peace disarming, a peace humble and persevering that comes from God. He spoke clearly that evil will not prevail. That is a call for hope. Again, not hope as we normally use it, like we use it and politicians use it, and prayers, oh, I hope it will rain tomorrow. I pray that whatever. No. Hope hope as a theological virtue, which means that you trust in God. That kind of hope, that God knows what he's doing, that hope, trust in faith. And yes, he mentioned the synod, and synodality. And we all, well, I went, oh, no, please. But allow me to clarify. He said also, as a son of Saint Augustine, with you I am Christian, for you I am a bishop. This is a holistic approach. Let me explain. He didn't say, I am a bishop with you. He said, with you I am a Christian, but for you I am a bishop. So how does he understand being equal? His doctoral thesis on canon law was the role of the prior in the Agustinian community. Yes, we are all brothers and sisters, but the prior is the prior. You understand? So there is the horizontal and the vertical. Let us not forget the vertical. And he does. So with you, I am Christian. For you, I am a bishop. I think that the synodality is not going to be the same if it continues. More. He read 32 lines. 32 lines were written. Now, please hear me. In the 32 lines, the word Jesus and Jesus Christ appears 6 times. Okay? In 32 lines. The word God 9 times. So altogether, what is it? 32, 6. Okay, so 15 times altogether. The word church 9 times. For the word peace 10 times. The word poor 0. The word immigrant, more about this later, 0. What happened? Doesn't he care about the poor? A man who was in the missions, he spent 40 years of his life in Peru. And I have seen pictures of him going from a mission to another mission, sometimes, if he could, driving, but sometimes on a horse. I don't want to say an ass, but it almost looks something like it. Perhaps it was just a young horse or a mare, I don't know, but okay. He spent all this time there with the poor. So no, I don't think we can accuse him of not being or not taking the poor into account. And please understand what also Leo XIII said, which he understood very well about the poor. You best help the poor when you live the doctrine of the church and will live as authentic Christians. You have heard me say this many times because of my background as poor and all that I am a little bit, I get actually quite upset when I hear, oh, the poor, those poor little things. The poor is, just something that everybody says, nah, you've heard me talk about it. So I find that how, that is why I quote Leo XIII, because he knew the difference. More about him also later. In other words, the poor is used politically, socially, independent of Christ. And that is where manipulation comes in. So I like what, I don't mind that he didn't say, oh, the poor. No. Okay. Now, then, yesterday morning, or well, the day after, we saw him in the first Mass carrying Benedict's cross The Mass was the Novus Ordo, but it was the sung English, and I found such a relief hearing the Kyrie and everything else done in Latin, even though it was the Novus Ordo. I don't hold him against him. I don't hold it against him. I don't think you can expect the first Mass, the day after, to be done as the Missa Cantata was. I mean, please, okay? The fact that he acknowledged the tradition of the church in some way, yeah. The homily, impeccable, impeccable. You remember Francis said that we shouldn't proselytize. In other words, we shouldn't catechize. We shouldn't, everyone has their own religion. And the Pope yesterday morning said, we must proclaim the gospel even where and when people laugh at us, even when people ridicule us, even when you heard him. That is not the same. Now, people are asking, is he a conservative and modernist? We can't quite make it out. Is he a man faithful to Christ who will announce the gospel, who will encourage evangelization? That is the issue. One thing that caught my attention was a photograph while he was the Bishop of Teclayo in Peru. Before the picture, sorry, because I heard other channels saying, oh, he's pro-LGBT. They're always concerned about this LGBT. Okay. Okay. He said, when the government in Peru was trying to introduce gender ideology in schools, which they see what happens in these poor countries is that because their economy is not working as well as it should, and we know the reasons for that. Okay, and then they have to go to international organizations to ask for money, and normally, as was the case in Argentina with the abortion issue, they'll tell us, oh, Soros will tell them, we have quite a few million, no billion here. But in exchange, gender ideology, abortion, and all those things. Okay. And they're practically forced. That happens in African countries too. Okay. So the Peruvian government was going to introduce gender ideology in this. Can you imagine gender ideology in some pueblo in Peru? Okay, so he spoke up. Yes, he did. He said one of the things, I just quote a sentence, the introduction of gender ideology is confused and confusing because it seeks to create genders that do not exist. Clear. He went on, but this is what he said. Oh, but here the ordination of women, okay, the ordination of women deacons. Again in Spanish, but here he is. The ordination of women deacons does not solve any problems of the church, and it will only serve to create new ones. Clear. Now, let me go to the picture here. I said that the picture says 1,000 words. During the pandemic in Chiclayo in Peru, when people were locked up, as we were in the whole world, what you're going to see, and I said at the beginning, please forgive me because I don't have the software to just put it up there and for you to see it clearly. I'm going to show you as I have it in my iPad, and you may not be able to see it, but don't worry. If you can't see it clearly, I will put, as I said, the one video, okay, and I'll tell you where to go at minute 22, okay? But I'm going to try just to see if you can see it. Can you see it? There's a light there. Okay. This is Pope Leo XIV, Bishop Prevost, when the whole pandemic and people were locked up in their houses, he went out with the Blessed Sacrament. He is, as you see him in the picture, he is walking towards us, as it were, okay? With the full bishop's regalia. You remember when old-timers, the adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, the priest wore special chasuble. You remember when we sang Tantum Ergum Sacramentum? You remember that? Okay, he's walking through the streets of cities, blessing with the Blessed Sacrament. I hope you can see it. Okay, that is my iPad. If it was too blurred, I don't know, perhaps with my, no, you can't see it there on my phone. Okay, I hope you were able to see it, but I will put it on the description box, okay? So I think that's a good thing. I take my hat off to him for doing that. And the thing that, the reason why people are saying, how about, LG, whatever, how about this issue? How about this issue? How about this issue? I wish that people would, I'm talking about Catholics here. I think Catholics in Protestant cultures could make an effort to think Catholic, not in an individual, this point, that point, that point. How about that? How about the other thing? How about the other thing? Can you try to think? I know we're all a product of our own culture, but can you at least be aware to think holistically about the whole thing? The parts will affect the whole, but look at the holistic, the whole picture first. And if you look at the whole picture, and this is a reflection, he will make mistakes. Of course, he'll make mistakes. Will he have, however, when he makes big mistakes, small and big, my question is, will he have the humility to listen and to accept that he made a mistake and try to, and repent if he has to repent and try to rectify it? Because he is going to make mistakes. Imagine as the church is now and all the pressures and all the world and everything, okay, and having to preserve or bring people together. He is in a very difficult situation because the church has been divided since Second Vatican Council, very much so. But during John Paul II and during Benedict XVI, it seemed as if the divisions were there. But what happened was that during Francis, those divisions became bigger. It was not just a division, it was a polarization of two extremes that couldn't even talk to one another. The first thing he has to do is to, first of all, calm us all down, I suppose. Okay. And you see the Latin that he used for the blessing and the mass and everything else. You could say, well, that's a little bit of a farce, that's just like saying to all of you trads, let's give them a little bit of Latin to these old dears over there. I don't think so. I don't think it was that. I don't think he is a sarcastic man, a deceiving man. I don't think. May he make mistakes? Because after all, he is a man of the Second Vatican Council. I think he was 10 years old when the changes came. So perhaps he remembers, or perhaps he doesn't, the old liturgy. Certainly, he had his first communion in the old rite. Yeah, but he might not remember. So he will have to do something. Perhaps he has already done. We hear that when he is in private, he celebrates the traditional, not always, but many times the traditional Mass, not the Missa Cantata, just the traditional Mass that I attended, my childhood. And he does it by himself. Anyway, so I think that instead of just concentrating on this point and that, can we please think Catholic? All right, challenges. Well, the Curia. Oh, what he said about the Curia was, that is a problem. That is where the infiltration is, yeah? So what he has said so far is that the employees, okay, for the time being, they stay there, okay, until he sees fit, let's say, to start changing things, okay? But, okay, so that was the notification, but there is a note there, a footnote that says at the end, that says the following, and not everyone has read it or commented on it. And it says, quote, "The Holy Father will take some time for reflection, prayer, and dialogue before taking his decision regarding the Curia. The Holy Father will take some time for reflection, prayer, and dialogue before taking his decision. He's going to take a decision." So what that says to me is that he is a prudent man. He's not entering into a race against time. Well, besides the Curia, obviously the bank, yeah, all those finances and all that. Okay, that has been a problem for a very long time. And the problem started long ago because you see what happened was that that bank, I don't know a whole lot about it, but if I can just sort of summarize it, the Banco Ambrosiano, there were intents to, and perhaps they did, I don't know. Archbishop Vigano knows a lot about this, to use it as a sort of, do I dare say, a sort of a laundering place, okay, because it was independent and so on, and it was to be misused. Cardinal Pell tried to do something about it, I believe. And pretty soon after that, he was accused, the usual thing, the sex thing, okay? Then he was found innocent. Thank God that they did that before he died. Anyway, and Archbishop Vigano was, as soon as he discovered this and that and a million things, he was sent off to Washington. Okay. And of course, we know that in 2015, the Vatican was very much under pressure from the moneylenders and Obama, President Obama, who practically bankrupted the Vatican through the SWIFT thing. At one point, the Vatican couldn't even move $5 or euros or whatever they use. The SWIFT thing was used by Obama and his masters, okay, to put a lot of pressure there. We don't even know the half of it. Anyway, so the Curia, the finances, the bank, people have very much stopped contributing. Not everybody, obviously, but a lot of people. Donations just plummeted because during Francis, people were not sure how those donations were being used and so on. So that is a major problem because there is stuff there to be paid. Anyway, so he has to, first of all, get some normalization, yeah? And it's going to take a long time, my friends, because the division has been there for 70 years now. Hopefully he will make sure, because he's a canon lawyer, he has his doctorate on that canon law is applied and that it works and that it functions, okay? Because one thing that we can say about Francis, and you cannot possibly deny this, is that he practically ignored it whenever he wanted, okay? Because he was the Pope and he could do so. Canon law has to serve for something, the reason we have it. Then, this particular priest, who was an Agustinian, I was listening to him. The video that I'm going to put in the description box, okay, where you can go to his talk at minute 22, where he has the picture. He was an Agustinian for 20-odd years. But then he's an old man now, but he's a diocesan priest, just a regular parish priest. He asked to be moved to being just a regular priest, because not a religious, because he felt that there was a need there, that that is what he should be doing, and so on. But he knows very well the Agustinian order, and he, of course, has brothers there. And he said, for his own experience and talking to his brother Agustinians, that everyone agrees that he is a very good administrator, because he was the head of the Father General of, I don't know what the Agustinian called it. Yeah, the Father General of the Agustinians, they elected him twice, so he was there for 12 years. Most of them know him very well. He traveled the world twice, okay, because they have to visit all the communities and so on. What else? Yes. Now, let me read my notes here. He's not afraid of Latin or tradition. Thank God. Okay, and today during Mass, yesterday, no, I think it was today at 12 o'clock, he again sung in Latin the Regina Coeli, the Gloria Patri, and so on. So my thing is that I know I'm holding on to something with tenterhooks, but my sense of relief at first that things were not going to get worse, at least. It's now, I think I have filled it with quite a little bit of hope. And I think that he has the markings of being, the potential for being a good Pope. Okay, now I was watching I have stopped now, but I was actually watching some channels that think that he's the continuation of Francis, therefore bad, therefore everything. I went to actually one channel, which is the Novus Ordo Watch. And I believe that this is the Sedevacantis people, okay? These are people who I have heard them before. I have followed them. I'm interested in the reasons and, their propositions. For the most part, actually, they are not weird or insane people. They give you reasons why they think that the last real pope was Pius XII. I think it's Pius XII. I don't know whether they go back even before that. But in any case, certainly from John the 23rd, I'm an old timer. I lived under Pope Pius XII, whom I remembered, John the 23rd, Paul VI, who came after him? John Paul I, who died within 30-something days, John Paul II, Benedict XVI, my goodness, Francis, Jorge Bergoglio, 7th, and now this is my 8th Pope. Okay. All right, so, but I have heard the Sedevacantis people giving their reasons, and they give the reasons, and I don't mind listening to them because they truly believe it. However, and they tell you, look, this and this and this and this, okay? Fine. However, this last video that I saw did not inspire me with the respect that I give to someone who can give me good reasons for something. I may think that I may not agree with them, but they are giving me reasons and for me to consider. But this last one, I can't possibly take it seriously. So I think I lost my whatever respect I had for that channel. Because one of the criticisms is, of course, they don't agree, first of all, that he's a pope. Fine, because that follows in their line of thinking. But then they went on to accuse him even, okay? And it seems to me a little bit too early. I'm going to say for the third time that I am here hoping on tenterhooks. I don't know. It might be that in a year's time I may eat my words and the whole thing was a this. I don't know. At the moment, I have no reason to think that. But they already said, one of them said, laughing, that he can't find anything about what he said about these anything that he said about these sexual issues. They're concerned. Everybody's what did he say about okay, he says, I can't find anything, so I'm going to call him the international man of mystery. His silence alone tells us a great deal. This is unfair. First of all, the reason why you haven't heard is because during 40 years of his life, he was in Peru. He had said, although he's a retiring man, he's a shy man, I think, naturally. He's not there always, on television or anything. But he did speak up on some of these issues. If you have bothered to go to the Spanish-speaking media, perhaps you would have found it. So the fact that you haven't, and he hasn't spoken up against anything, you haven't found it, but it is there, albeit in Spanish. Okay. Then they criticize him because of the appointment of certain bishops, for example, McElroy to Washington, D.C. You remember? Francis did that, yeah? And all these, these gay hierarchy. So they criticize him for that because he was there for the last 2 years. So he gave his okay and blah blah blah. Well, I don't know. Francis seemed to me and to many people that if he wanted to do something, he would do it. He was rather, as we heard in the other videos that I did, he was rather dictatorial, especially when it came to what he had clear and what he wanted. I have no idea whether Cardinal Prevost was in favor, against. Even if he were against, if Francis wanted to do it, he would have done it. I think it's too early to blame him for those appointments. Okay. What else? Where he went. Oh, they also say about where he went for his post-secondary education. He went to this school in Chicago. I only have the CTU in Chicago. Okay. I suppose it was a Catholic college or something like that. Okay, and they say, there is a former nun, poor woman. She abandoned her vocation. But she says that back in the day, because she was at school at the same time that Prevost was there, that he expressed support for her desire to become a priest. And they add, if this story is true, that suggests that he is a man of the left. Okay, first of all, a former nun. They didn't ask any nun. They asked a former nun who wants to be a priest. And she said that he expressed support for her desire to become a priest. When he was 18 or when? And they accuse him because of a former nun who wants to be a priest. Oh, please. And then they go on to say that perhaps there is a cover up here, and really, if you want to derail Trump, the globalists might have put another American there. At that top, I stopped watching. Okay. What I have now found out is that those of us traditional Catholics who were, it was a day, it was a painful day. I said to my daughter, look, the whole day, I knew how important it was. I didn't know that sit down, stand up, go for a walk, go to bed, this and that. It was painful. And now watching people who agreed with me, many of whom I respect, they had the same feeling. It was so important that to us, just the fact that he doesn't disparage the Latin or the tradition gives us hope. Those who accuse him, the LGBT, something like that, it seems to me that they have fallen now into, they have turned traditional Catholicism into an ideology, and that is dangerous. So, I have a question for them. If you think that he is an evil man, let's not even say evil, let's say bad, he's a bad man. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think about it Catholic and speak Catholic to me in your answer. And this is the very general question. Do you think that a man who is evil or bad can become good? Do you think that an evil, or if not evil, a bad man, do you think that he can become good? Answer that question in a Catholic way. Okay, so one last thing that I have, and that was the controversy between Pope Francis and J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States. It was really about immigration. And you remember that Vice President Vance said, the question was put forward, no, against it, illegal immigration and all that. And the explanation is something that we all can agree with. In other words, you look after your own house first. The usual example, if your house is burning and your neighbor's house is burning, then obviously you have to look after your house, your children, your wife first before you go to, that was the example, to the neighbors. If I can, of course I will go, but first I have to save my own children. Yeah, okay, we all agree with that. Yeah. But they were talking about different things. And when it happened, and Francis answered, I thought at that time, Francis is right here. And I thought to myself, no, this has to be the first and the last time. But in my heart of hearts, I could see what he was saying. And then I thought more about it. And I thought, I won't talk about this on a video because I have to think about it. I have to think about it. How can I possibly be on the side of Francis? And then I realized that they were talking about two different things. Let me explain what I mean. In the example, J.D. Vance is right. You have to look after your own family first before you consider the others. Yeah. But that is a question of duty, responsibility, moral obligation to yours. Yeah. That responsibility that you have towards your children, you have to protect them. Yeah. It's responsibility, is duty. Yeah. Where Francis, and I think Pope Leo, who apparently, I don't know, agreed with Francis, comes from a different thing. They're talking about different things, I think. Because you see, what they are saying is that quality, that virtue that is almost for saints, is like really most of us can't have it. And that is the idea of sacrificing yourself for the sake of others. That is ultimately what charity means. Not just love, love, love. No, charity is that sacrificial love that you would put yourself after the other. Only saints can do that. I mean, that's practically impossible. But remember, for example, I don't know, Abraham being asked to sacrifice his own son. He could have said, But dear Lord, how can you ask me to sacrifice my son? I'll sacrifice anything else, but my son, I have an obligation to my son. Did you see? And saints have been able to, and the martyrs have, this is something very special. It's just, you know, a lot of grace there, divine grace, to be able to say, in order to save the others, I will sacrifice my own. That's impossible for most of us, I agree, but it is a virtue. Yeah, that is what they were referring to. But of course, J.D. Vance, I don't think he claims to be a saint. He's a good man. Okay, fine. But he can reply. He can say, yes, but I am a politician representing my country. And my duty is not just to me and my own children. My responsibility is to my country, and I cannot sacrifice the country for some other country. And he has a good moral, ethical reply there, and it is valid. It is valid. Okay, so I'm sure that if, you see, they were talking on different planes here. So Francis and I suppose Leo XIV was saying the sacrificial, I'm guessing, okay? But what I think is, because they're both right in different ways, I think that if they could sit down, the vice president and the Pope, if they want to discuss this little thing that they have there pending, okay? Because they are both intelligent and they're both, in this case, I think they're both honest, okay? That they could actually understand one another and see that they're coming from different things. They're addressing different virtues, as it were. Because this Pope, unlike Francis, who intellectually was not super gifted, I think this Pope could address it politically, philosophically, and in every way. And perhaps they could agree, yes, that the president as a the vice president as a politician, he can be asked to sacrifice his own children, but not his whole nation. I'm sure that the Pope would understand that, and it will be a fantastic discussion. I hope they have it. I don't know. I think I have to stop. Oh, yes, don't let me forget your comments. Let's see. Mark, he certainly isn't as progressive as Francis. He seems a moderate. He bridges traditional with progressive. He has to walk carefully. Yes, he can't just move, and burn the bridge. Don de Leon, many traditional Catholics, and I'm sure many progressives as well, have been praying for a unifying Pope to heal the divide. I agree. In this day and age, Pope Leo XIV seems like the perfect answered prayer. I think so. I agree. Joseph Wagner, I'm praying for Pope Leo XIV. Marshall Kinsey, yes. I saw that online. Is beautiful. I suppose that you were referring to the picture. I hope you were able to see it. I'm sorry, I'm so manual here. If you ask me to, oh, you have to use StreamYard. I said, what the heck is StreamYard? I'm totally lost in this world. Okay, I should find out. I'm not a stupid person. I'm sure that if I cared to find out, I would probably figure it out. Okay. Marshall, excuse me, Marshall Kinsey. I was very moved by his singing the Regina Celli today in Latin on the loggia. Yes, I was too. Mr. Chewy 89. Sadly, he is Bergoglio too, as he has committed to V2 and synodality. What is V2? Oh, Vatican II. He has committed to and synodality. Uh, it depends how he interprets synodality. I think we have to be careful not to be, to judge too early. As I said, his idea of equality, everyone giving opinions, yes, but the prior is the prior, and the bishop is the bishop. He is not just horizontal, he's also vertical. All right. Okay. Mr. Chewing the monk at the channel from Rome gives reasons about Leo XIV. Okay. Marshall Kingsley, I'm rather exasperated and disappointed in a well-known traditionalist priest who I've greatly admired for years is already branding this pope a heretic. It pains me greatly. Yes, I have noticed that. And I'm going to say to these people who are judging him so swiftly, I'm beginning to, because those of us who I think are sincere in our weaknesses and everything, but sincere about the divisions in the church, were relieved. And I'm going to say that those of you who were not and who started criticizing him already, I just wonder whether you are, I'm beginning to think that some of you may be what in politics we call, what is that? The opposite, what is the word for it? Controlled opposition. Because that is what you are acting like and you appear to be. Now be careful. So I agree, Marshall Kinsey. C.C. Brooks, Mr. Chewy, give it time. That's right. The right people are upset by him so far. Yes. I don't know that there are more. I don't think so. So if there are, I will take them into account and we'll comment on it at some later date. Oh, one more. Josephine Murphy. Strange he had a speak ready. What? Strange he had a speak ready, very unusual speech, I suppose. Strange he had a speech ready, very unusual. I don't think so. I don't think it is unusual if what you mean, oh, he already knew, da da da. It wasn't very long, it was 39 lines. It took forever for him to come to the balcony. A person who has been writing and so on, he could have written, he collected his thoughts in an hour. Yeah, I could have done that in an hour. I mean, not his speech, but I mean, I can, if I have an hour or even half an hour, I can write something, what's on my mind. So can you. I don't think that out of that, having a speech on the first impression, carefully drafted, very carefully drafted. If he spoke extemporaneously, who knows? But he's not that kind of man. He has been a leader of the Agustinian order for a long time, 12 years. And they all say that he's a good manager is not the word, but when he has two opposing sides at the end, they agree to something, and none of the parties feels that they've been had or that they've given too much. None of the parties feel resentment. They all feel he was able to solve it, whatever it is, so that you may not have wanted got what you wanted, but you're okay. Is that kind? It's a gift. Yeah, I don't have it. But he has that. So, um, well, he would say all you want to hear. Ah, I see. I see. So basically, you're on the side, Josephine, you're on the side of those who think, well, of course, um, what I said, that you could say, let's give them a little bit of Latin to these poor dears, so that. Um, I think he's intelligent to know that we are not all idiots. um, I don't think so. I have explained it already. I disagree. I disagree. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you very much for being there. And thank you. Bye bye.